Our theme this month is divine circulation. And my topic today is that everything circulates. Everything circulates. You hear me say this repeatedly. Nothing stands still. Absolutely nothing. Everything is energy, and energy is constantly in motion. There is nothing linear in this universe. Absolutely nothing. That everything is circulating, and even what we call linear is a series of repetitions. From one year to the next year, January, February, March, April, one day to the next day, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We know this, that the circulation that's happening in our body temple of even our cells, the planets are orbiting. Everything is moving around. There's no such thing as stuck. What we consider to be stuck is not a lack of motion, it is repetitive motion. Okay? It's not you're not moving. It's like a tire that's spinning in the mud, where you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So just think about that sometimes when it feels like you're stuck. We feel like something's holding us. It's not that anything's holding us. We're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, so we have to stop for a moment. And when you're feeling stuck, the last thing you feel like you want to do is stop, because you already feel like you're stopped. But you're not stopped when you're stuck. You keep doing the same thing. I don't care whether it's a relationship. I don't care if it's I'm thinking of myself. Sometimes I'll be like on my cell phone or something, or I'm on a computer and I'm in a loop. And I just keep doing the same thing. And about after the 6th time I've pressed those same keys, it's like, wait a minute. Why do I keep pressing the same thing? Because I know what's going to happen next. We have to stop for a moment and make some other choices. So when I talk about the circulation thing, and now everything circulates from a couple of different perspectives. We speak often about how it comes back to us. And I am going to talk about that, but I'm going to make that second. What I want to talk about first is this idea of circulating is not just in a circle, but everything circulates in terms of distribution, mass distribution. If you think of a newspaper, for example, and we say the newspaper has a circulation of 1 million or 500,000 or something like that, what we know that means is that that newspaper reaches, that they produce 1 million, they produce 500,000, and that much is going to get spread. Yes? But they don't know to whom. Now, they may have some people who are on subscription, but every day when they produce those newspapers, they're just letting it rip. They don't know where it's going to go. Think about that for a moment. This is happening with everything. Absolutely everything that gets thought about, produced, created, felt. Now, I know this may seem like a shock, but everything is energy, and energy cannot be contained. So your thoughts are actually circulating out in the universe. Your feelings are circulating out in the universe. Your thought doesn't stay just within your brain. Your thought doesn't stay within your body temple. Your emotions and your feelings don't just stay within your body temple. Have you ever sat next to or been in a room with somebody saying nothing? It reminds me of this line in the help. The help. The book itself and the audio program of the book, not necessarily the movie, but the book, I think is one of the most brilliant things on social diversity that's ever been made. I mean, on cultural diversity. And there's this one key line in there that I'm reminded of. It's where the main character, Abilene, is having this stare down with the white woman that she works for. And I've heard the audio program a couple of times. She says, "Isn't it funny how we manage to be having ourselves a conversation and ain't nobody saying nothing?" And I can't explain how important a message like this is for a time like now. Not just our social political climate, but with the kind of technologies that we have to be able to mass distribute and mass circulate consciousness. Think about that. To mass circulate consciousness. What happens is that when like vibrations get together, they multiply. They multiply. There's a synergistic effect. Synergy is when synchronized energy gets together, and the sum of it is larger than its parts. They use this in business a lot. So if I'm UPS and I hook up with Kinko's, like they did, there's so many customers that Kinko's has, there's so many customers that UPS has, but you put the two of them together and they have a market that's bigger than what either one of them would have had alone. Okay. So you have two people in a room, one person in the room who's angry, and then you put two people in the room who are angry. Okay? Let's say there's 10 people in the room. You have one angry person. Now you've got two angry people. Okay. Those two angry people could dominate the whole energy of the other 10 or the other 8. Are you with me? There's something that happens with synchronized energy. This is part of the reason why we will do things synchronized, like have massive marches simultaneously, or massive rallies simultaneously, or big meditation days, or something simultaneously. It's like if it's one thing when one person speaks up, but then you have 1,000 in the streets, you have 100,000 in the streets, you got 100,000 in multiple streets around the world, something happens. Are you with me? Something happens. We can see that when people are physically showing up. But the same thing happens with just thought or energy. The same thing happens with just feelings. When you have people who are responding, let's just say, I don't know, to a tweet. Or who are responding to a news headline. Or who are responding to some kind of natural disaster or something like that. There's a bonfire that's being made. Okay. Are you another log on the fire? Are you part of creating the firewall that contains it so that it doesn't spread? Are you fanning the flame? Because, you know, you can have just a little bitty spark, but you go fanning it, and what happens? Shoo, it spreads. We know this well in California, particularly over last year, 2017, when we had all these horrific fires, but then the Santa Ana winds and these winds came in, and those firefighters didn't stand a chance because it was just being spread so. Are you with me? Our breath is life. spirit, pneuma, the breath. What are we breathing life into? What are we spreading with our words? What are we spreading with our consciousness? And how is that circulating out and around? Jesus used to talk about the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. The letter and the spirit. And saying you can obey the letter of the law but still be missing the spirit of the law. So if the letter of the law in the 10 Commandments says, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, we often shorten that to thou shalt not lie, but it isn't really thou shalt not lie. It would be nice if it had been that, but it's thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Okay? How are we ever going to get justice? How are we ever going to get down to the bottom of it, of the truth? These 10 Commandments were laws that Moses was given in the desert in that long sojourn for 40 years. In the desert, we think of them as a bunch of thou shalt nots, but they were really social order rules. To keep order, to keep peace. It wasn't really thou shalt not kill, it was thou shalt not commit murder. It would have been nice if it said thou shalt not kill, but there's never anything in Scripture that's been against like killing per se. It's thou shalt not murder. But Jesus says, but what difference does it make if you're murdering people with your words? In the Sermon on the Mount, he says, in the book of Matthew, he says, if you're killing your brother with your words, what difference does it make? Okay. Now, I have no idea who came up with sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. They need to stop giving advice. Because I'm telling you now, not only from my personal life experience, but somebody who's been a spiritual counselor over 30 years, that long after the broken bones have been mended, the bruises from the words, are still wounding. And that's a lot of the stuff that we have to deal with. I had the opportunity on Palm Sunday weekend, I guess that's 2 weekends ago now. I was so pleased. I was speaking at Center for Spiritual Awareness in Sacramento, and in between the first and the second service, I got this tap on the shoulder, and I turned around, and lo and behold, it is somebody I had been looking for literally for decades. We had been besties. I mean, seriously besties. From the 7th grade up to like graduate school and college. We were tight. And we had an opportunity to have lunch together or whatnot afterward, and it was really, really sweet. We used to do drama together and poetry together. And I just had a flash before I came up here that this poem that has meant the world to me in life was actually given to me by her. And I wish I remembered the whole poem, but I know the gist of it. Some of you might be aware of it, called Drop a Pebble in the Water. It's this beautiful poem. This is the bits that I can remember, but it's like, drop a pebble in the water, in a moment you forget. But there are tiny wavelets happening and ripples circling yet. Spreading, or something from the center from the center as they flow, and there is no way to stop them. From the center as they go, and there is no way to stop them once you have started them to flow. And then it makes that analogy to our words. Drop an unkind word, drop a word or you know, some kind of unkind thing, and a moment you forget. but there are tiny ringlets rippling, and circling. And once again, they're spreading and spreading, and you can't take them back. And perhaps in some sad heart, you've stirred something when you drop that unkind word. Everything circulates. Just take that in for a moment. Our minds are such awesome places of responsibility. And not only does it circulate, not only does it spread, but it will always eventually come back on you. Always, always, always. What you put out comes back on you. I don't care whether it's you personally or whether it's you as a nation. When I look at this probe that we're doing in the United States now about Russian interference in the United States electoral process and how outraged people are at the thought of that. And it is a bit outrageous. However, can you imagine how many elections the United States has interfered with and tried to manipulate through the decades? It boggles the mind. But the idea that you could do that and it wouldn't come back on you? Are you with me? This isn't even a political statement. I'm talking about spiritual fact. I was trying to recalibrate my timing yesterday because my body was all off from the East Coast. So I took myself to the movies and I saw Chappaquiddick. And I'm being reminded now of the trouble that Malcolm X got into and his comments when JFK Jr., when John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy, was assassinated. And he said, "The chickens have come home to roost," for which he paid extremely, extremely dearly, even from the Nation of Islam, that he was associated with the black Muslims. And I'm not trying to glorify President Kennedy's assassination, but there was a point he was making, which I think is quite valid, that you can't go around the world assassinating other people's leaders. You can't have a nation that's so much violence and not think that that violence is going to come back. You can't build nuclear weapons, drop atomic bombs, and not think other people are going to try to build nuclear weapons too. And it is fallacious to think that you, the only one who's dropped the bomb, can be the sole keeper of who gets to have the bomb. Because they're going to want to get the bomb to protect themselves from you. It's so beyond politics, if you can feel the frustration in my voice. Is that some stuff is just spiritually fallacious. It's just fallacious. It's fallacious to think that you can do bad, you can do harm, you can do injury that you can be mean-spirited or whatever and not have it come back on you. But here's the good thing. Here's the good news, is we live in a redemptive universe. We live in a redemptive universe where everything can be cleaned up, everything can be composted, everything comes from the one, merges back into the one, and can be transformed and transmuted. That's the beauty of it all. That is, in fact, our saving grace. So understanding that, it's important that we not get into shame, that we not get into guilt, that we not get into judgment, that we not get into blame, because that keeps us stuck. That keeps us in that process of the repetition where you can't get out of it and you're just producing more and more of it. Listen to what I'm saying. The judgment, the blame, the guilt, all of that keeps you in it. In it. Keeps it repeating. History does not repeat itself. People repeat history. People repeat history. So we always have a choice. We always have a choice. And in order to get out of the rut, in order to get out of the loop, and it may feel counterintuitive, we have to bring it into the light and offer it up. We have to bring it into the light. We're only as sick as our secrets, as they say in the recovery programs. You bring it up to the light. That allows it to be composted. See, there's a difference when you take the old scraps and you just leave it in the container in the back of the refrigerator, you know, and we say like it's dead, you know, like it's old and it's dead, and you open it up, it ain't dead. Oh no. Now you may not want to eat it. Do you get what I'm saying? Nothing dies. There's nothing that just dies. It may not be that form anymore, but trust me, something's gonna grow. Something's gonna grow. So that's what's happening in our minds and our hearts and our psyches. A lot of us have stuff we put in the little containers, and it's in the back of our minds, and it's in the back of our hearts. Some of it's in our joints, and our bloodstream, and our organs, and our muscles. Are you with me? Stored cellular memory, like of stuff that eventually you got to get out. You have to detox it out. We have to get it out of our systems. And can you imagine if we just started a practice, instead of putting it in the little container in the back, shutting it up, acting like it doesn't exist, and then when you do bring it out, it stinks. It stinks to high heaven. It stinks so much that sometimes you don't even want to go there and clean it out because you know it's going to stink. Yep. Open it up. Ooh, Lord. Close it back. Listen, that's what we do with our lives. We start to get into that healing. Ooh, boy, this stuff stinks. I got to close that lid. I can't even stand the smell of my own stuff. Okay. But what if we, like, let it go before it started stinking? Imagine that. What if we composted it before it started stinking? That composting is a beautiful metaphor because it is the deliberate intent to let it go. Knowing it's going to turn, knowing it's going to churn, where we're actually thinking about it ahead of time. Before we're just throwing stuff in the trash, it's going to go into the landfill, and before we're using the garbage disposal, and it's just going down into the rivers and the places where the water's got to be distilled. If we're consciously putting it in the pail and knowing we're going to take the pail and give it back to the earth. Can you imagine if we actually started doing that with our lives? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Maybe it's your journal. Maybe it's your altar. Where's your compost pile? Where do you take your stuff, put it on the altar? Maybe you're composting every day. But it is that release, it's that circulation, it's allowing it to be reclaimed and redeemed in such a way that it becomes valuable. I had this flash today, and I don't mean to insult anybody, but this image came to me in the shower that a lot of our healing journeys, prayer sessions, recovery meetings are like compost piles. They're like compost piles. It's places where we can bring our stuff. We can bring it. Everybody bring your stuff. Okay? And we're going to churn it up, and we're going to churn it up, and we're going to give it back. Give it back to the divine. Give it back to the earth. Give it back. Turn it around. Let it be mulch. Let the manure become fertilizer for what's next in our life. So it's circulating, even if it's just growing in the Petri dish in the back of your refrigerator. It's growing. So wouldn't it be amazing if we let all of the positive stuff about us, now that we know this stuff, what if we let the positive stuff out and circulate? Ooh. Ooh. What if we made our places of gathering the bonfires that are fanning the flames of truth and of justice and equality and well-being? What if the energy that's coming out of our body temples, because just like you can have that one angry person in the room that shifts the whole energy, the same thing will happen with the peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers. It says in the Beatitudes, for they shall be called the children of God. These are not just mediators, they're the ones who have found peace within their own heart at such an extent that it impacts the ones around them. The children of God in the same likeness and character of that. And then you get two peaceful people in the room, it'll shift the whole dynamic of that energy. And you don't even have to say anything. You can be in silent meditation vigil. I invite you to do that sometimes in your business meetings, in traffic. You don't have to close your eyes. On a Skype conference call, at the dinner table. Just instead of you energetically getting caught up in the nonsense of what's going on, rise above. Rise above. Hold the energetic space of something that's a higher frequency and that's a higher vibration, so stuff neither implodes or explodes. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we chose to do that? You don't know where it goes. You have no idea. We don't. So we've been averaging, I think, like about 1,000 views for the messages here on Sundays. over 44 countries. I wish we knew everybody that's looking now. Hi. See you, love you, wherever it is that you are. But we don't know the impact. Are you with me? But we can set an intent. Can we set an intent for kindness? Can we set an intent? Because what you know is that like vibrations will meet. Like vibrations will find each other. Like vibrations will multiply. We seem to understand the spiritual qualities in the negative more than we understand them in the positive, which is why sometimes I use what appear to be negative analogies, because people get that. Like if I say to you, we're here in Santa Cruz, where cannabis has been very popular way before it was legalized. So if you smoke weed and you leave a place like Santa Cruz, where it's very easy to access, and let's just say you go inland in California. Let's just say you go to Stockton or something like that. If you smoke weed, how long do you think it's going to take before you find some weed in Stockton? You think it'll take a month? Nope. And this is nothing against weed. I'm just saying that people know. You know that even if it was something that was illegal, or even if it was something that was like on the DL, on the down low, could be sexual stuff, it could be whatever. If the like energy is there, you can have a room full of 100 quote unquote happily married couples. But the cheaters are going to hook up. Before the night is over, the digits have been exchanged. I know, I used to be one of them. I'm telling you what I know. That'll happen. That's before I was Reverend Deborah, though. Just let me make it plain. That was the old day. That was the old day. But it'll happen. So don't feel so lonely in your positive consciousness now. Don't feel so overwhelmed looking at what everybody else is doing. Know that if you have a vision of empowerment and you're willing to hold on to that vision of empowerment, I guarantee you other people who share that vision, you will gravitate towards each other. You don't have to worry, am I a lone wolf in this company about integrity or accountability or whatever that is. Because if you just hang in that vibration, then the other people who are also in that vibration will start to connect. The energy field of that will start to rise. Stay in your compassion. Stay in your kindness. Allow that to circulate. Allow that to circulate. And I guarantee you, it will shift the energetic vibration. We are not up against personalities. The field that we're in right now in a collective consciousness is about consciousness. I cannot say this enough. It doesn't matter in the end who's in the White House. Because the White House is just the reflection of the collective consciousness. And how we ebb and flow, and what we empower and what we don't empower. Of the people, by the people, for the people. Are you with me? Let your inner light shine. Let you stand for something. And just like Stephen Walters was singing here, that stuff is circulating, and stuff is circulating around. You don't have to stand there and get hit. He was singing a song because we live here by the ocean. Like the waves come and you dive in. You dive in up underneath it. You know, think of the Matrix, the spiritual Aikido. Woo. Boom, you let it go by. Or people who do Aikido, they're not trying to overpower the opponent. They're using the opponent's energy against them. So the block may be coming, but you caught and then you move with them and like swing it open. We don't have to have this feeling of us just being like sitting ducks and life just shooting us down like one by one. No, 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 no. We have power. We have agency. We have energy. We have vision. We have possibility. And it's up for us to act like we have it. Are you circulating fear? What are you circulating? Are you circulating possibility? Are you circulating joy? What are we circulating? What are we circulating? And isn't it wonderful that we get to make that choice? Isn't that wonderful? When we wake up in the morning, we get to choose the frequency that we're on. Turn your dial to K-God. K-G-O-D. That's where you get to vibrate. That's where you get to hang out. Does this make sense? Yeah, let's breathe this in. Let's pray.